Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to highlight a handful of new construction developments that we've seen the biggest price drops, the largest discounted incentives, and had real personal experience in recent history helping clients navigate some fantastic deals if you take the perspective of what's been available the last few years. And it's basically in an effort to give you an updated view of what's going on with the market down here, and then maybe even a specific opportunity of something that you could realize in 2025. So what we're going to do is talk about what they are, where they are, and I'm going to share every bit of information updated as late as this week of what's going on incentive-wise, timeline, etc. So I hope you enjoy it. If we have not met, my name is Adam Hancock. If me and my team can assist you in any way with your real estate needs, please consider reaching out. Without further ado, let's hop in. All right, community number one to kick things off on my list, and we're going no particular order here, is called Sweetwater, and this is 100% being built by MI Homes. Basically, we have a third phase evolution of an area called Lakewood Ranch, Florida. Large master plan, but I wouldn't even call it a master plan community at this point. It's a part of town. It is its own city. 50 plus communities. It cascades over like 4 major streets, both horizontally and parallelly. This is what you would call Northeast Sarasota, more or less. Now, that is important because if you're going to have an area that large, then everything in a silo is convoluted. But none of them are in a silo. Everything had its value derived from the time at which it was released for the most part. So in 95 to 2005 speed round here, they built like the middle section. The very first sexy thing that people were excited about after that, they went to the north of it and they built the Lakewood Ranch High School District. Because at this time especially, 35 to 45 minutes one way to downtown Sarasota seemed too far from people. Like someone like me who grew up, and everybody kind of grew up inside the I-75 line. Like there wasn't a lot east of I-75. So everybody that kind of grew up there viewed this area as really, really far from everything. So you had some affordability because of that. And then you see like Mallory Park with DeValsta, who builds Beachwalk and Talon, the Pulte brand. Then you have Neal communities up there with Indigo and Central Park. And you know, a lot of the original district people hopped to that district as they had kids and stuff like that. So that was the belle of the ball at the time. And you were above State Road 70, below State Road 64, and pretty close to the interstate. So once that starts drying up, then of course they continue going on. All they did was go right to the east of it, where Sweetwater is based, is very close to a mirror of what that first sexy district was. So that's where we kind of landed. But when they first came out, this is where it gets really important, is you had one Pulte community called Sapphire Point. You had a real peacock called Esplanade Azario. This is before Park East even existed in any meaningful manner. And then other than that, it was a bunch of like Lennar and D.R. Horton, which all have their place, but they are a spec builder for the most part. So very limited design options, economies of scale, comes with affordability. Okay. So what happens is basically you come to Lakewood Ranch and you're like, all right, looks like there's a billion communities, but okay, these are all like built 95 to 2005, they're boxy, they're all resale, like I don't know, not a lot of amenities in the community. Then you go to that first district I mentioned, it's starting to be sold out. So you might not be able to get in there in any way that makes sense to you. And then you have this new district and you're like, okay, the reason I'm still up there is because I don't want the resale, or people still deem this northeast part, you know, this is 15 to 18 miles one way from town instead of 9. Waterside didn't exist in a big way at the time. And if in the way it existed, it was expensive. So that's how you end up even in this area to begin with, right? But when you get up there, all of those millions of communities that it look like online become small. Nothing really existed. Star Farms didn't exist. Palm Grove with Neal didn't exist. So Sweetwater was the first one to jump into the conversation right around that time. The other stuff had already kind of been going, but it added another option where you could do a normal build. Very much was a kid-centric, multi-generational play, and it gave you an option where it's basically now Sapphire Point versus this one. So it had a lot more value at that time than potentially at this time, where you have way more to pick from as a buyer. So that's the manifesto of how we got here. And I do think all of that really matters, because if it doesn't make sense to you today, it made sense at the time it was happening. So you sit in this one, you're above State Road 70, below State Road 64 again, kind of in the meat of where you have a lot more family style houses, you know, a lot more 2 stories that have lofts, stuff like that. It's not all 2,800 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath with a den on the bottom floor, which doesn't work for someone that has 3 or 4 kids potentially. So where we get to today, this is what we're working with. So this one has existed for a few years now. So you have about 45 to 50 single family homes remaining in the entire community. One of the reasons I wanted to mention it in this video, this is a mix of to-be-built homes and them doing spec out of like pre-designed, pre-permitted, which they do what everybody wants. They've seen everybody else build, right? So they do quartz white countertops, they do the floors people want, they do the backsplashes. They're not going weird with it when they do inventory homes. So it could give you a timeline benefit. And on a builder like MI or one of these kind of guys, it's very possible that you would pick something similar. So be one advantage to doing that. Villas are still available as well if you're looking for, again, it could be a pure cost play, it could be an interim option, but it gives you the most affordable price and fee arrangement in most communities across the area if you're okay with having just two small single families attached to each other, basically. Beyond that, we're seeing I just looked yesterday before I made this video, 100,000 plus in discounts on quick move-in homes. Quick move-ins, it's basically a resale home, but new, more or less. It's probably less than 3 months away from move-in, something like that. And they're just discounting them like you would a resale home you can't sell. They're just chopping the prices down. And so, but this is a big difference because, you see something that's $515 that's now, $420. You're seeing something that was $480 that drops into the high 300s. It could be a really interesting play to give you just a safety net, something that you could be like not romantic about of a community like this that could be discounted enough where you're like, I can't lose at this. Especially even if you want to get down here and figure things out, every town, especially Sarasota, looks completely different a year removed from your move. So getting in a place where you're like, I could definitely resell this, especially since they were selling some of these homes more expensively a year ago, then I like it for that reason. So that's quick move-ins. Quick move-in are the steepest discounts we've been seeing against all homes you could build, all resale homes in the area right now. $100,000 of flex cash for the final to be built homes. And flex cash would allow you to apply it to different areas that are meaningful to you. It could be to the principal in general. It could be to the design center. And like this all at a certain point ends up being a total package of a price. But if something really matters to you, if it's a cash thing, like a liquidity thing, if it's a total principal thing, whatever it matters to you, you can get upwards of $100,000 in cash. That's pretty consistent. There's not a lot of to-be-built homes left, but this is one you're going to have to pick one of the remaining lots available, pick one of the remaining one of the base floor plans that can be put on that specific size lot, pick your design options, pick your structural. This will give you the most flexibility to build in here if you wanted to, and you can wait. And they're not taking 15 months to build these anymore. So if you sign today, this might be a December, because if their fiscal year ends in the calendar year, they could try to jam that in there. I think they'd want to do that for sure. If it doesn't, then I think a Q1, 100%, your house would be done. So that's interesting. $10,000 typically on top of these other options toward closing costs if you use MI Financial. And then they're trying to go below market on financing available. Like every builder is pretty much saying that right now, but it might have some sort of timeline lock to it. But if you look at the average time that someone stays in a house, and you can lock in 3 to 4 years on a 5% interest rate, then on a discounted principal, then it's getting more interesting. Builders that I don't even know if I would have considered, I would consider now because of that can't lose environment. So that is our number one, Sweetwater. All right, community number 2 on my list is one called Sunstone, and this is built by Mattamy Homes. We are now heading down south to the Welland Park district. It's the other real master plan area. It's very different than Lakewood Ranch, but it's the other one that is communal and you can get your head around. It looks great online. They do a fantastic job branding and acknowledging it. And it's a very good way to learn Sarasota to compare these two because they're polar opposite areas and everything. This came out as like kind of a coastal play, Welland Park was. It's very narrow, this part of the state. It gets you closer to the water prospectively. Most of the communities are under 18 minutes to 4 different beaches. It's a little bit more boutique than Lakewood Ranch. Not a little bit, a lot more boutique than Lakewood Ranch. So you do get master plan, you get communal amenities, little downtown stuff like that, but it's not like 50 plus communities. So what that was is you had a district called the West Villages with Grand Palm by Neil and Renaissance, which was Mattamy as well. You had a community called Oasis with MI Homes, some Lennar stuff as well. That was on the other side of Tamiami Trail east of it, but that was its own thing. It was the West Villages, not just a district at the time. Welland Park kind of emerged. They added new districts to it, and then they rebranded the whole thing as Welland, kind of went down to Englewood, grabbed Boca Royale, and you got this kind of thing that looks like one thing. What it is actually is the old West Villages, and then this second district called Playmore. Playmore was the one everybody's really excited about because it added the walkability. It was the newer one. The downtown's right next to it. Cool Today Park, the baseball field's right next to it. You're 10 minutes or 10 miles from Venice Island, which is the downtown Venice area. That's about 40 minutes below downtown Sarasota. More laid back, more coastal, a little older demographic. This was added some perspective affordability to retirement or to like old Florida way to raise your kids in a coastal environment back in the day, because a lot of people would jam their way into Sarasota, and then if you go south of it, then it was viewed as like Sarasota 2 or Junior Sarasota at the time. So that was that's what Venice is to the area. It sits between Sarasota and Cape Coral, which is above Fort Myers, which is above Naples. So the Playmore District came out with where they're basically selling stuff that you couldn't see yet. So a lot of communities were like about to come out 2021-ish at the same time, but there was no infrastructure. So you had 2 Neal communities, which people are used to because you had Grand Palm, which was there, you had Grand Park, you had Windward in Lakewood Ranch, you had Indigo in Lakewood Ranch, you had Canoe Creek out in Parrish. So they came out with a community called Avelina, which was like 90-something homes, no amenities, but still an HOA. And it was basically like everybody's favorite size lot neighborhood, but it was only that. It was like one section of what they'd done in other neighborhoods in addition to other things. So either had its place for you or not. It was like kind of a premium Neal offering. Wisteria was the second Neal one, and that was like almost almost 100% of the community I think was spec'd out. Sold really, really fast. It was more affordable. It was a great empty nester little community because of the size of these homes, and it was more of a no frills thing than Avelina was. And then you had Solstice, which is a pared down version of Toll Brothers. So you had the Isles up in Lakewood Ranch and some other ones, but this was where you could get something that maybe would be $1 million in Lakewood Ranch was maybe $600,000 or $700K here, or even cheaper. And then in the mix was this community called Sunstone. Mattamy you might not be super familiar with them. They haven't done a ton around the area, but they're the developer of this Playmore District. So now you see the Brightmoor 55 and up community. You see these multiple offerings, but all people knew was basically that Sunstone was the newer version of a community called Renaissance. And Mattamy was very much like, I would say even more than some, was not only a mid-level builder, you pick your options, structure, like normal builder, but they offered a little bit more affordability than some. And so you would look at Neal, you'd look at Taylor Morrison, you'd look at Pulte and DeBoston, these kind of brands, and then you would say, where are they at? And Mattamy could come into that conversation at that point, but that's kind of how it's always been in people's minds in Sarasota. And but it was one of the only ones that had a lot of different floor plans, that worked for a lot of different people, that were all pretty affordable, and it had amenities. At the time that a lot of these came out, with that Playmore District, I really thought that they might have thought that people weren't going to be romantic about amenities, and they were going to move here, and it was going to be a retirement kind of play, and they were going to use the town and the downtown as the amenity. So they kind of went no frills with a lot of these. But what happened now is that people still want their own private amenities in addition to downtown Welland and communal pickleball and stuff like that. And so I think they maybe overplayed the hand a little bit at the beginning there. Sunstone was one of the only ones that kind of fit an empty nester. It fit a family. It allowed an option against Lakewood Ranch to Venice in an area that did not have a ton of new construction at the time. The downtown was not really built yet, but it was coming. So depending on when you got in, it was kind of a random one that no one was that romantic about. But also, if one of the other ones didn't work, you had only 7-8 communities, they all went in a different direction, then Sunstone was in there, right? So you basically went in here and you're kind of shopping like nothing really was apples for apples, and you're like, all right, this one works the best for me. That's how all of the Playmore was originally. Well, because of that, I think that it got kind of lost in the minutia a lot. I don't hear Sunstone popping up a ton over the last year. Unaware of it, they don't know if it's sold out, they're not really thinking about it. But when you step back and you look today and you look at the options, it's more interesting. We have, I started thinking about it because we have a gentleman that we've been working with that I think he's gonna buy 2 houses in here. But he was looking at Beachwalk pretty heavily, and not from the area, so was looking at the coastal kind of stuff and went there, and then went to Talon Preserve, looked at some sea flower stuff, like all your kind of natural coastal elements that are unique new construction near the water. And then, said like, okay, well, 2.5 miles, I get it. Beachwalk's cool, but if I'm just, 9 miles instead of 2.5 to the coast, then I get all of Welland, and then I get in here and I'm like, if you understand what you're getting with Mattamy, don't go crazy here, don't have $1 million house maybe, then it just kind of works, I get to be in the Welland district. I got a lot of affordability, got a lot of leverage right now. That's where it fits into the conversation if you're shopping Venice, if that makes any sense. So let me fast forward to what's going on today. 50% off of options and slash design, the countertop upgrades, the backsplash, floor, stuff like that, up to $100,000 on to-be-built homes. So this is one where you do the whole package, you wait for your house to be built. 6% toward closing costs, and 2.5 to 5 points depending on rate buy down on quick move-in homes. A lot of liquidity play there, which is interesting. 3% closing cost credit with the in-house lender, 2% if you're using cash, if you're not doing a quick move-in. Some homes are throwing in a free golf cart, so that's just an interesting way to go about it. Just it could strike someone's fancy that instead of giving you $12K, they give you a golf cart, or I think we had a customer that got an $18,000 like decked out golf cart. These things get more expensive than you think in Wild Blue. So this is a great district for that because there's not a lot of walkability in Florida if you're not at like the Villages or small parts of Lakewood Ranch. But this is one where you could really soak in that lifestyle really close to where your house is, which is cool. Sunstone, as far as timing, kind of drying up, but phase 3, Sunstone Lakeside, has just opened. So you're gonna have about 206 home sites here, and they've only sold like 10 of them. So you have over 190 still available. So interesting. Just as I digress here, a couple quick examples of what's going on as far as like price drops and stuff. So they have a 1,500 square foot model I was talking to the lady yesterday about. So it was 409K. They dropped that all the way to 319. So just perspective of like you're almost getting close to the twos here, which is when have we seen that in Sarasota lately? The top sale, which a lot of people enjoy, if you're looking for like 1,800 square feet, empty nester, interim, or you just don't need the space, there was one at 485, it dropped to 369. So you kind of get the point here. If you wait for some sort of price drop, you come in like we would and say like, okay, it's at 369. Am I gonna sign this and it's gonna drop tomorrow basically? So is there any other room there? No, yes, whatever. And then you leverage all of the other stuff. If you're not romantic about it, then use their entire system efficiently to get the most cash you can, the most financing credits, anything like that you can in addition to this stuff. And then you get a house that costs a lot less, and then you apply a percentage-based fee system, CDD, HOA, mortgage that's tied to financing against a price that's $100,000 less than it would have. With a downgraded rates and all this kind of stuff that you can get from this builder, then you can really lower the annual cost of ownership for homes in a monumental way, if you think about it. So I think at least running the numbers on that makes communities, again, that you might have overlooked or might have just not really cared about. But if you're not romantic about anything, like you're not gonna go full custom or some of like the best version of what that area could be, and you're gonna go in the middle, then you might as well go for cost. All right, number 3, I wanna talk about the Taylor Morrison company as a whole and what they're doing in multiple communities around the area. They're so large and do so much in our area so consistently over the years that when they're making an effort a lot of times in at least the main parts of town, not on the outskirts, to do things like incentives and discounts and stuff like that, it's a little different per community, but right now it feels like there's an effort pretty much across the board in the main pieces of town that you can get some movement. And this is what I've been seeing with a lot of people I speak to, a lot of my teams reporting back that Taylor Morrison comes up time and time again for being open to accepting offers and just more pliable overall. So I want to talk about that. I've already beat to death, I think, for lack of better words, the 2 main areas of town, Lakewood Ranch and Welland Park, when it comes to master plan. So I'm going to go a little bit more brevity in the rest of the video, but 3 main things I think are interesting. One, we'll just go to the furthest one at the moment. Esplanade Azario, I talked about, that was the Peacock golf community I talked about in Lakewood Ranch originally. Now Lakewood Ranch is much more than at the time this was first released, so it's still attractive from the standpoint of deeded golf with not a semi-custom build, but a normal built house with really nice amenities with fees that make sense. That is not commonplace across town. Even paying golf memberships are just very limited. A lot of times pin you into the house you have to live in and stuff like that, or within proximity to these communities. So I still think from new construction golf perspective, even socially, I like Taylor Morrison's Esplanade brand for that reason, especially. Esplanade Azario, what we have right now, Northeast Lakewood Ranch, about $50,000 off the smaller to-be-built homes, about $70,000 off of the larger to-be-built homes. This is just like off the board, or across the board rather. $15,000 towards closing costs. All of these have shades of gray. Financing incentives for buy downs or closing, so a little bit of the flex cash stuff. And then we're seeing quick move-in advantages that are pretty competitive, if not more than the resales in there too. Because you think about the people that bought in like early Esplanade Azario, like imagine the equity they have in their homes, but they're trying to realize all of that. So sometimes the builder can get you closer to a price that you want. And that's one that Esplanade Azario at times has fallen out of favor because just everything that I loved about Taylor Morrison and how it fit to the world, COVID hit and how crazy these prices got and the amount that people are spending on just the lot and stuff like that. It got some square footages without golf to price points that I wasn't comfortable with. just as far as like the person that buys that, they're never getting another person to buy that at a higher price potentially. They're swinging back into some favor for me. So again, a lot of people forgot this one existed because it's not the new kid on the block, but second look would be worth it. Other option is to go to Skye Ranch. So Skye Ranch is mostly Taylor Morrison, but there's multiple things going on. A lot of times Taylor builds like communities pointed at different demographics without actually having an age restriction. So like Esplanade Azario is like the section, but they have Esplanade at Azario and they have Park East at Azario. Park East is clearly more family friendly and more affordable. Lower HOA, no tile roofs, a lot of 2-story plans. Skye Ranch is that on steroids, kind of. So Skye Ranch, one, changes the location. No golf, so you got to take that off the table. But if you didn't want Northeast Lakewood Ranch, you wanted central Sarasota, about 11 miles parallel to Siesta Key. It's pretty mid in town. Then you can't do, obviously, the Lakewood Ranch version. So if you want central Sarasota and you want new construction, there's like 3-4 total communities. Skye Ranch, what they did is they built like their own little mini master plan. So Taylor Morrison has 3 sections of it, 3 areas, and they kind of go in and out of who gets access to different amenities. I'm not going to go ham on this video about that, but Skye Ranch is the area. Casilla at Skye Ranch, Esplanade at Skye Ranch, and then they have a townhome section. Esplanade is like your 55 and up. It's like your adults pool. Community within this area. So Casilla at Skye Ranch would be maybe a more premium version of Park East. So a lot of family-friendly floor plans. It works both for families and not, but you're going to see more of that there. 50 homes remain in phase 1, and they're completely sold out of the 62-foot lots. Phase 2 is launching Q4 probably, maybe early 26 as well. They're going to have 42-foot wide, 52, and they're going to have 62-foot wide home sites. Across the 3 collections I just named, the 3 different sections of the neighborhood, there's going to be about 1,300 future lots in that phase. So it's like Esplanade Azario is like 1,500. So you're talking like another 8-9 year build out probably in just the additional phase. So it's going to be a big thing. It's interesting. We had rumblings at first that there was going to be golf there. I don't hear that anymore, but amenities are really nice. It's a nice overall offering, I think. Great part of town. $50,000 in design credits. $15,000 in towards closing costs, and then they're trying to do the below market financing as well because they control the whole supply chain of services. Esplanade at Skye Ranch, which they didn't do the Lincoln and the Beacon in Esplanade, so they stopped at the 62-foot wide, but you could do the Palazzo, you could do the Lazio, you could do the Farnese, and a lot of people really love those flagship brands up in Lakewood Ranch. 93% sold out of phase 1 as well, so limited inventory on the phase 1, but there could be deals to be had. $50,000 flex credit on the villas, $70,000 on the single families, $15K in closing costs. This is very similar to the Esplanade Lakewood Ranch, up to 1% below market value in interest rate knockdown. A couple of random examples that are real examples, but there's a villa right now that they're offering 3.75% rate. It has terms to it, and at Lazio, that's like really nice appointed 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath on like 2,350 square feet ish. It's the Palazzo's child basically. Pool and spa Lazio fully built out for under $900,000. We've seen a lot of these lately selling for over $1 million in Esplanade at Lakewood Ranch. So that just gives you a couple examples, but this is important to know. So they got a waterside community being launched in that new section that's Southeast Lakewood Ranch, adjacent to Waterside, as it currently exists. They got that coming out in the next under 12 months. And then the one that comes out before that is most likely going to be Esplanade at Welland Park. That is it's like 850 something homes that will be just south of the Welland Park Golf and Country Club, just below like the main Playmore district as it exists now, next to the Myakka Pines Golf Club. I've been talking about that on previous videos, but those are all coming out. So if you think about what they're doing now and then the new stuff releasing, the main salespeople that everybody loves that are going to be moving to launch these new communities, you could get a lot of opportunities by going after the old communities. They're in good areas and all that kind of thing. They build a new community, they're going to have to get further from these communities are to town most likely. So that's my number 3. All right, number 4, we are talking homes by West Bay, and even though I said brevity, that last clip I think was like 9 minutes, so maybe I don't have the ability to speak in brevity. But okay, so this one's kind of a simple one. The Homes by West Bay brand was not really in our area at all, not in Sarasota, Manatee. They were in Tampa, and they'd always been like so I built in a neighborhood in Wesley Chapel in like a little after 2010, I think. And that was when Wesley Chapel, which is like the northern suburbs of Tampa, was just kind of getting going. And there was a mixed-use community that was put out by the company that puts out all those lagoon communities called Metro Places. And it was Pulte, K-Hub. They haven't done anything in Sarasota, I don't think, but they're kind of like, they almost look like Northeastern kind of, or Texas houses, a lot of brick and stuff. K-Hubinian, I think. There was David Weekley in there. And then Homes by West Bay. We ended up building with Homes by West Bay, but at the time, I think I was like 25, 26 years old. It was because of affordability. I mean, I like the style, they're very coastal, but I think I couldn't even afford the Pulte brand in there, and maybe the David Weekley too. Like, I viewed them as like the premium ones of the neighborhood at the time, if I remember correctly. But the Homes by West Bay had that like David Weekley, Neal Communities coastal look, but I could do a 2-story, I had 1 child at the time, in a way that like just fit my price range more or less. But so they were always that to me. Like it was like they reminded me so much of David Weekley and Neal with the coastal aesthetic and the style and even the names of their homes and stuff. But then recently they came to Sarasota and they started just popping up, and they would grab portions of neighborhoods. You know, so they're at Star Farms, but Star Farms was majorly D.R. Horton dense and also master developed by D.R. Horton's parent company. So it was like D.R. Horton and then, you know, Arthur Ruttenberg, Lee Weatherington. So they're basically have like spec builder and then custom, and then Homes by West Bay jumps in. And then they go in Everly, another custom based community. And then you see them at Crosswind Ranch in the Parish area as well. And they've come out with all that to say, they come out with like a lot more premium angle to Sarasota. And it's interesting because not only that, but they have kind of plugged holes that existed previously. And that's why I wanted to mention them. So if you go in Star Farms and you have, that's what weirded everybody out at the beginning, it still does kind of. And D.R. Horton is the affordable of affordable. You know, like they are spec'd out, like even Lennar on steroids, kind of. They build a ton of homes, the most volume, I think, in the United States, technically on new construction. And it provides a lot of affordability because of their control of that supply chain. So that's what, they come out at Star Farms and they provide multiple amenities, so give you a lot of affordable price points in a family-based district and a little bit of a 55 and up element to it, and that's what it was. But then Arthur Ruttenberg, like these local custom guys, Arthur Ruttenberg, Lee Weatherington, John Cannon, well, they have not combined with like these really affordable guys of just being like DR and custom. Like you're talking 2.5 million variance in price point. And so people that are nervous about doing the custom next to this because of like long-term value, but if you want a custom house, you want to be in this district, you're affluent, but you have kids, then you know you can see how that could happen. Well, then Homes by West Bay pops in and they're like, okay, well these guys are here, I'm gonna go right here. I'm gonna be here for 950, 1.2. So it really fills this gap. And the people that were like, I can't go all the way to here, but like, this doesn't work either, they're there. Everly, same thing. Arthur Ruttenberg, Lee Weatherington, a bunch of custom guys in Venice, and an area that people are not used to that price point yet. I think if you want a more custom, more unique, Pinterest board level house than a Toll Brothers or Homes by Town, the semi-custom guys can provide, then the only solution to that, if you don't want to do like straight urban infill, is to do one of the kind of franchise-based custom guys, which I've just mentioned, right? Where it's like construction of perm loans and like $1.5 to $3 million price points, stuff like that. But that's not Venice's history. So people are like, I don't know if I want to be the first one to pave that way. Well, then Homes by West Bay pops in and says, you know, in a neighborhood of all custom, where they're all here, what if I go right here and just be slightly under them and provide an option there, but like nicer than the average Joe, but a more affordable price point. And then, you know, what if I provide a premium angle to family housing and parish? And so that's kind of what they've been to me in the area because I was so familiar with them in the past. It's just like if you live in a different state, you've seen Pulte and you've seen Toll, you come here and you're like, this is not what I'm used to. So it's interesting. The randomness of how they will appear, if you don't look at it from that angle, I think it's interesting for the same reason, but you have to really make sure it applies to you. You got to like them for the reasons I just said, or it's going to be weird. Okay, with that being said, they are also offering some really attractive price points in comparison to what else you can get in all of those neighborhoods I just mentioned. I would look at the angle of how they apply to that neighborhood in general too, and then try to get it even lower. So I got to agree with this and try to chop it down. 50K design credit in most of the neighborhoods, 1% mortgage rate buy down. And then they're having some interesting releasing stuff coming too. Like they're gonna get like 90-foot lots out in northern Lakewood Ranch that'll give you like a $2 million price point, but on a 90 by like 180-foot lot is not super commonplace. You might want to check out resale beacons on 90-foot lots in Esplanade Azario, because a lot of people weren't aware that early on they sold this like I mean, people were building 5,500 square feet deeded golf for like 1.2 million in Azario. So if those people are reselling those things, they can make like $800,000 and still sell it to you for like 2 million. But if you step back and you said, how could I replicate this at 2 million? It might be difficult. So I'd look at that too. But keep an ear to the ground, if that's a thing, about Homes by Westside's future releases too, and try to pile on the incentives to that as well. All right, number 5, Boca Royale down in northern Englewood. Boca Royale is on the Welland Park website. Well, definitely in the past, it was basically like all of Welland was here and Boca Royale is down here. It is a golf community that's very, very coastal in Englewood. So you're very close to the beach, you get golf, but it's kind of an old school thing. It's almost like the Founders Club in a way of not just the low density of members, but the style. Old school, more calm, laid back golf community. Neil Communities has played very heavily in there as a builder, and they're offering, they're accepting offers on their quick move-ins. They have really decreased spec inventory pricing. They're giving a lot of flexibility. They're willing to negotiate design upgrades, lot premiums, and price. We've had a lot of success there. This is another one that I don't even know if it's on anyone's list. I don't even know if people are aware they're still building in a lot of capacities. It's been doing this for quite a while now. But with the southern expansion of what Welland Park is, of how much that is like southeastern Venice than it used to be, the communities that used to be like this, people still remember being like way down here, like Beachwalk and Boca Royale, are coming back into where you can maybe get the best of both worlds. You're already coastal, you're already that far south, you already hit golf, and you add new construction to it. And then now, oh, downtown Welland's not that far, or they're building golf elements down further south. All the future expansion's looking like all it could go is this direction, and you're already here. And if you can see that value, it's really interesting. It's kind of like when they did Country Club East in Lakewood Ranch after West was built. You saw the old school neighborhood that applied new construction to it. So you had mature landscaping, but you get new construction, and you could maybe get it at a great deal. It's something to look at. All right, number 6, the Valsa brand by Pulte juxtaposition. I've beat this drum for a while now. I still think it's interesting. I think you should look at Talon, Preserve, and Nokomis against the sister community of Beachwalk in Englewood against each other. It not only helps you understand how Venice works, you can live on the island or you can live below it. These are two communities that are very similar to each other in style, models, perspective pricing, amenities, all that kind of thing, but they're in locations that are very similar to the same thing when they meet in the middle, but are very far from town. So Talon Preserve, being in the Nokomis Osprey line, says, I want the Venice stuff, I want new construction by it. Like, I don't mind new construction by itself. It doesn't have to be part of some greater concept. I don't need a custom house or anything like that. So I love the $500,000 to $900,000 range. But I have some tie to Sarasota. I don't want to be that far. Like, I want Venice, but like I don't want to lose completely to Sarasota. So by being above the island, 10 minutes down to enjoy all the Venice stuff, not that far from Welland as well, but you're a little closer to Sarasota because you're on the way. Beachwalk, however, is like, it's a commitment. So you're going all the way to Englewood. You get a little bit more of the Welland Park stuff in proximity to you. Beachwalk gives you the big peacock of you're 2.5 miles one way to the beach. You're closer than Seaflower, you're closer than any of it. So if you're like, even more, I don't need to be around all this stuff. And I like Minnesota Key, it's calmer, but then I have this wonderful community with a restaurant. It's got everything but golf, basically. Then by just looking at these two, you can learn a lot about the area. So the Beachwalk restaurant just opened, so that's kind of cool. You can see that now. Just like when downtown Welland wasn't open, it's all in theory. The more the stuff's open, the more competitive it's going to be over time because people can actually go there and enjoy it now. The biggest thing with them is they're accepting offers. They are open. And they're pretty transparent. The reps are old school at both of these communities. Like, there's a gentleman named Dominic at Talon Preserve I really like. Different Dominic than the one at Wild Blue. Both great guys. There's another one named Andrew Basco at Beachwalk. And he is like a lot of the reps that exist at the Pulte brand, he brought over. He was at Sapphire Point back in the day. He knows a lot. And he knows about all the other communities too. So and he's very transparent. So what you can do is basically you can ask, and they'll say yes or no, but they're not gonna it's not all this like dog and pony show, which I really like. And so that's what we've been seeing, and I think they're pretty fair with it. I think that what I've seen people get on the Hallmark and some of these other models, the Stellar, Mystique, it's interesting. 5.25% fixed mortgage rates on select inventory, so that'll allow you to move a little bit there. and then continued flexibility based on the phasing and the status and the timing of when you do it. But the biggest thing is that you can make an offer. And now you can't go in and be like, the house costs $600K. You can't be like, I'll take it if you give it to me for $280. This is still Sarasota. If you work with us, this would never happen anyway. I don't like the strong arm element that exists at all. That's why I have great relationships with the new home reps, which definitely helps the buyers because of how consistently we communicate. But you can see what other people are doing, be aware of it, and then try to replicate that at a builder that you like more without being like, they're offering me this, if you match it, I'll take it. And there's an element of that, but if you take a more discreet approach to it, then I think that's a cool way to do it as well. So anyway, that's number 6. All right, my 7th and final one for this manifesto of a list at this point is mainly Solstice, the neighborhood by Toll Brothers. This is in Welland Park. It's in that main Playmore district I mentioned where you had like the Neal communities and Sunstone and that area by the downtown. At the time, the value here was that it was one of the higher end builders. You didn't have a lot of custom, and you didn't have a lot of people wanting to spend like $2 million in general anyway, but then you're comparing against Neal, Mattamy, Lennar at the time. And Toll's always had that like really close to custom without being it, especially with the reputation of how well they did in Lakewood Ranch. That's what it served, and then it gave you a more affordable version of Toll. They came in this area and they're like, people aren't going to want to spend the money they're spending in Lakewood necessarily. They didn't build the same exact houses for cheaper, but they built different houses and just not as crazy. But it gave you like $750,000 price points on like really nice houses where you couldn't even start at that at the Isles in Lakewood Ranch at the time. So that's what a little bit like that now, but now they have more competition on you have Homes by Town there now, you have Neal Signature, you have Homes by West Bay, which I just mentioned. So it's got to find its place again as it fits there, I think. But crazy incentives on the quick move-ins as far as like drops, like discounts we've seen up to like $150,000 on certain stuff. So just a couple examples. If you're familiar in the Sunrise collection, the Rose Hall, $540K, it dropped below $400K. So it was like at $399. The Dunnet, D-U-N-N-E-T, probably saying that wrong. It was in the low 6s, dropped to mid 4s. You catch the right one at the right time. In the bigger collection, at least for Solstice, they had a Ballater. It was a coastal elevation, 2,800 square feet. It was at $880, selling now for $650. And this is what I like, because I think $880 depending on pool, doesn't necessarily not make complete sense versus what else is sold there. But if you get that at $650, you get into with a builder that makes sense to people. Like, that's going to be hard to replicate for people later. So the person that buys that now could 100% have room. You could add a little bit to it and be fine. Don't get crazy. But $650 could totally turn into $8 something again. So like, there's your equity built right there. And then another one, just to give you another example, the Flora was one of the more popular models. That would be a model that you tour and when you visited and stuff like that. I would do the Flora like maybe similar to what the Lazio is to Taylor Morrison's brand, because it's 2,400 square feet depending on what you do. You can get a 3-car garage, and the Lazio you can get a 3-car tandem, and it floats in this range where the 3,000 square foot version of it would be over $1 million, and then it goes under that or whatever. And even ones that they really like that they know they'll sell, they were right under 900K, like high 880s, and now they're down as low as like 820s. And potentially, if you play your cards right, maybe you can get that in the high 7s, depending. Don't hold me to that, but that's what I'd be trying to like kind of flirt with that. But so you see the movement. One of the interesting things to do would be, like I mentioned that Lazio with a pool spa at Esplanade Skye Ranch previous in the video, if you call it that, under 900K with that. You could look at like this against it and get a really good idea of what people are doing. Because what I've noticed that a lot of the builders can't get that close to find out what's actually going on at a given time. So they go in and out of losing a sense of what the other people are doing right around them. And if you can get a better sense of it in a cordial way, then you never know what you can do. All right, folks, that does it for this edition of the Florida Relocation Guide YouTube channel. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you're not subscribed to this channel, please consider doing so. Just the best way to see what's coming over the balance of 2025, and still a ton of videos to come out. Please also like the video if it was valuable to you. That'll just help someone else maybe find it as well. If me and my team can assist you with any of you and your family's real estate needs, please consider reaching out. I own a full-scale real estate brokerage called the Sunshine State Company. It's right on the back of this YouTube channel. So we're very obviously data and analytical driven, but relocation and new construction, I personally think we have more examples than anyone has in not only active conversations with people seeking similar things, but also real life examples, just because of how niche the space is, and then the nature of this kind of environment. We're not mutually exclusive to just those two areas. It's regular real estate buying, selling, investing. But I do think every buyer of the past helps someone that potentially is watching now that hasn't done something yet. So yeah, please consider reaching out if that sounds interesting to you. My website, thesunshinestateco.com, is basically the home base. We have written word versions of the videos. We have audio only versions of the videos. We have relocation guides that you can download as a PDF, but also as a flip book on your browser. We have one email every 30 days. It's the 30-day email list newsletter. It's kind of a manifesto. Unlike, a lot of the lifestyle-based real estate stuff you'll see, or getting a bunch of listings that an individual person is representing or something like this. This is more of a macro, what's going on with the market, what's going on with new construction incentives, like things we're trying to figure out, things we have clients right now we're trying to figure out. So, it's another preparation thing that's more in real time than videos like this that have to be evergreen. If someone watched this 6 months from now, some of the stuff in this video will expire, but the overall concepts will still hold true. So check all of that out if you see fit. Thank you guys so much for consuming any of my content. We'll see you on the next one.